If your hair, cloth, or any other physics object in Unreal Engine looks perfect in the preview but breaks during rendering, don't worry. Today I'll show you simple methods to make them render perfectly every time. Okay, look at the scene. We have a horse running in a desert. Everything looks good, and when we play the simulation, you can see that the animation plays right and hair physics is normal. But watch this rendered shot. Look at the hairs. They are moving crazy. Why? Why does this happen? The answer is temporal sample count in anti-aliasing. Usually for rendering, we turn on this setting so we have a better motion blur. It subdivides every 2 frames into a couple of subframes, so we have a better motion blur quality in moving objects. But these subframes distract the physics of hairs and clothes. But what do you need to do now? I will explain some solutions recommended by other people and Epic Games. And finally, I will explain a better solution that I used for my latest work, and let's go! For this problem, I tried everything. Chaos Cloth Manager? Yeah, it usually works. But in this case, my horse's hair was completely destroyed. Then I went for the console variable that Epic Games themselves recommended, but the result? Nothing. It just eats up your time, and in the end, it's exactly the same, like nothing changed. And of course, the famous method. Motion blur set to 1, frame rate doubled, anti-aliasing turned off. I tried it directly, but nope. All it did was increase motion blur, and it's still miles away from that magical motion blur we had with anti-aliasing. So here's the question. When every solution fails, what's that hidden trick that completely kills this problem once and for all? Believe it or not, the answer is even simpler than you think. All you have to do is remove motion blur here, and then, in After Effects, or any other software, just add it back in. Yes, I admit, at first glance, it might not match the masterpiece of anti-aliasing's motion blur, but trust me, it's a whole step above all the previous methods. And of course, this is not the end of the story. If you stick around until the end of the video, I'll show you exactly how to do it so the result not only looks exactly like anti-aliasing's motion blur, but maybe even better. Alright. Now it's time to show you what happens behind the curtain. Step 1. We break the scene into pieces. 1 layer for the environment, 1 layer just for the horse. If we want to go even more professional, we can even split background from foreground, so we have 100% control over everything. So let's begin. We render the environment without the horse, and we set anti-aliasing exactly how we like it, so we can get that masterpiece motion blur, but only for the environment. How do we remove the horse? Click on the horse's blueprint and uncheck the visible option. Poof, the horse is gone. But keep in mind, this also removes the horse's shadow, and that shadow is part of the environment. So turn on Hidden Shadow. Now the shadow stays, but the horse is invisible. In the render settings, keep anti-aliasing on and push its quality as high as you want. Then export the scene, and this becomes the first layer. But the second layer, this is where things get serious. To get a clean render of the horse by itself, we're going to use a feature most people ignore: deferred rendering. First, we need the horse in an entirely separate layer. That's where the Layers panel comes in. From the Window menu, open the Layers panel. You'll see it's empty for now. Click on the horse's blueprint, then in the Layers panel, right-click and choose Add Selected Actors to New Layer. Now the entire horse and all its details are stored in its own dedicated layer. I'll name it Horse. Next, we set Motion Blur to 0, because here we don't want any motion blur at all. So in the post-process settings, set Motion Blur to 0. Then go to your render settings. Either turn anti-aliasing off completely or set temporal sample count to 1 so no subframes are created. Now it's time to enter deferred rendering. Click the small plus under actor layers and set index 0 to your character layer. And here's a very important point. The output must be in EXR format. In the settings, choose EXR sequence and make sure to check multi-layer box so that each layer is saved inside the file. Finalize the settings, choose a dedicated folder, and render. Just like that, our second layer is ready. But there is still a small problem. Sometimes we see that the horse shakes violently at certain moments, which causes the hair physics to be disrupted at those moments. And this problem only exists when rendering and does not exist in the editor. But what is the reason? I found out that the reason of this is the keyframing of the transform in the main blueprint itself. If you set a keyframe here, the horse shakes between two keyframes, and if the number of keyframes increases, these shakes will increase during rendering. To fix this problem, place a cube in the scene and drag the horse blueprint into it. In this way, this cube acts as a parent, and wherever the cube goes, the horse moves in the same way. And of course, with this, there is no more shaking during rendering. Now we're done with Unreal Engine, but this is only the beginning of the second act. It's time to go into After Effects. First, create a composition with exactly the settings you need, and import the environment layer. In the Project panel, double-click, go to your folder, and click on the very first file. But make sure you check the Open EXR Sequence box before importing. Once imported, rename it to Environment. But we immediately face two big problems here. First, the frame rate is locked to 30. But if your Unreal export used a different frame rate, everything will be out of sync. Solution: right-click the footage, interpret footage, main, and set the frame rate to match your Unreal export. Second, the footage is set to 8-bit, but your EXR file is 16-bit. So click here and change the bit depth to 16 to have full control over color and lighting. Repeat the same process for the horse layer and name it Horse. But here's the surprise. Your horse layer is not just the horse, it also has the environment. Yes, there is a way to make sure the environment isn't rendered with the horse, but I didn't mention it on purpose because it's important that the environment renders with the horse, and you'll see why in a moment. For now, let's separate the horse from the environment. Search for the Extractor effect and drag it onto the layer, and in the Layers menu, select the horse layer. But we still have a problem. After Extractor, the horse's colors and lighting get messed up. My solution? Duplicate the horse layer, Ctrl D, name it horse.color, and simply remove the extractor from it. Then set the track matte of the main horse layer to horse.color, and boom, perfect colors and lighting. Congratulations. Now you might think we're finished, but our main issue is still here: motion blur. You can start with pixel motion blur in After Effects. Select both horse layers, pre-compose them, search for the effect and drag it onto your horse layer. This will give you motion blur, which is nice. But this effect has two weaknesses. It's expensive on your processor, and the results aren't always perfect. For the best result, use the RSMB Pro plugin. It's designed specifically for motion blur, but it is less expensive in processing and gives you full control over the blur strength. Just drag it onto your horse layer and adjust the settings as you like. Now our motion blur is ready. But if you think this is the end, you're seriously mistaken. Good rendering doesn't stop here. If you want to learn the right color and lighting settings for cinematic films made in Unreal Engine, don't miss this video.